Hello, everybody. Um, Working on a sketch cover. Got a show this weekend up in back in Ohio, back where it all started. Um, it's on a TMNT Universe #1 cover, and it was a book that I actually did a variant for Colorado Springs Comic Con. It was a few years ago now, but it was fun to do. Like in the description, Bill Sienkiewicz and Kevin Eastman did a story in this book, and I've been huge fans, of Bill's and of course Kevin's for many many years, and I've since gotten to meet them. And I actually got my copy of TMNT Universe #1, my personal copy, signed by both of them at San Diego a few years back. But yeah, I started this over lunch. I don't know if I'll have it done tonight or whenever, but it'll be done by the time the show starts. So Saturday at 10 a.m. or whatever it is the deadline. So I actually saw the original first two movies actually in the theater when they first came out. I actually I bought when I went to the store when this book originally came out. They had, I believe, 4 copies of the sketch cover on the shelf, and I bought all 4 of them. Now just to buy the blank is expensive. Best of luck to all my pals out in San Diego this year. Sorry I'm not out there with you. Hopefully next year. But we'll see what happens. My version of the Turtles is kind of an amalgam. I don't really do necessarily the classic, and I don't really do the 2013 or 2014. It's kind of a blending of the two. Hey, Jonathan, it's shaking. Uh, yeah, when I did the animated adventures cover, which was my first one, they sent me this big style guide, and they had me do some drawing tests, and I kind of like absorbed some of that stuff to the point where I just like I thought the design work in it was stunning, because they basically created some pretty idiot proof designs. Um, they gave crutches to things that were like hard to draw, like anywhere where there's a difficulty for an artist to draw, like whether it's fingers or elbows or joints or whatever, they designed it to have tape or pads or whatever as a way to not necessarily hide the artist's deficiencies, but to like give it some leeway. The original turtle designs, if you look at them, especially like the Archie books that like Dave Garcia drew, gotta have your figures on point if you're going that simple. So. Don't know, like I said, I don't know how far we're gonna go. I still gotta finish packing for Gem City. Because I had to work today. I had a million things to do. I don't get asked to draw the turtles that much anymore just because I haven't done anything on them in some time. They changed their variant program, and some of the people I did variants through just stopped doing the IDW variants. They got more expensive, and nobody asked me to. I had talked to Bobby Carno's the editor-in-chief there now at one point about it, and it was I just wanted to like at least send a portfolio to try to get some interior work, but it's like a we'll call you situation. Anything new on your end, Jonathan? You're going to be heading down to Terrificon. That's a good artist that don't do a ton of shows will be there. Probably not going to do the full 2 hours tonight, but we'll see how far we get. It's warm in here, so I'm just pouring some seltzer water. Yeah, guys like Rick Hoberg was there. He doesn't do a ton of shows. Jerry Ordway is there. Yeah, I spent my going to Gem City. I actually spent a good chunk of my high school and middle school. Living in Ohio. My folks still live out there, and I started really doing conventions out there, just helping out with one of the local stores. Uh, Thanks, Jeff. Budiansky, yeah, big Transformers guy. Yeah, he doesn't do a ton of shows, which is surprising. He's done a ton of work in comics and in animation and stuff. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Douglas. It starts at 8. I did the pencil chunks over my lunch break. If I don't at least start the drawing, we never even get close to finishing on the stream, and people seem to like to see the finishing touches rather than like the big structurals, like all the erasing that was done as I was trying to cram these 4 characters onto one cover. You know the feeling, man, where it's like, how does anyone fit this much character on one sketch cover? Like if this was 11 by 17 and we were shrinking it down, no sweat. Like this is an easy one. But when you got to cram them all in there and you're trying to not have any tangents, yeah. Do you want to see the swearing? You want to see me yelling at the paper and sweating and like I've definitely destroyed plenty of perfectly good paper um, with bad starts to drawings. All right, well, we'll do that next week. Yeah, trying to get all 4 brothers onto one cover is tough, and having them big enough to where they're not like ant size. So you end up doing basically like little bust sketches and try to give them personality. I always try to have, Raph scowling and Don kind of indifferent or pontificating, and Mikey always, having fun. I was in rare form today, Douglas, with the not just with starting this drawing, but having to pack for flying out tomorrow. When you're trying to get your suitcase just under the weight threshold where they charge you. And then I just saw like a whole like deal with my buddy Craig Russo. They had him sleeping in the airport. It was his flight got switched over. So fingers crossed, it's a smooth journey. Job lot paper. Job lot has good paper, to be honest. The mixed media paper, but in this case, no. Especially when I ruin like sketch covers that I have to buy. Some of these are really expensive. Like I have um, like a Spider Gwen #1 cover and like the Jane Foster Thor 1 cover. I just buy them when I'm at the store when they have them, and now it's like, do I draw a picture on them just to like have somebody go, "How dare you ruin a key comic?" Yeah, it's always fun when you're, in the terminal and you have to throw stuff out that you were intending to sell. That's always a good feeling. Or you have to ask the terminal person if there's a FedEx in the airport, and sometimes there is, and sometimes you can ship it to the hotel, but then you have to pay for Saturday delivery or whatever, and then yeah, it's always a nightmare. And then you find out that it was actually cheaper to just pay the extra than it was to ship it. Yeah, if I had known for sure I was doing the show, there was a point where it was in doubt, just with personal stuff. I would have shipped a bunch of stuff to my parents' house out in Ohio. One thing that always looks wrong to me when I draw the Ninja Turtles is that the Ninja Turtles in my head are in duotone paper, which doesn't exist anymore. So there's always like that something missing. Hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I don't know. That takes a level of coordination that I probably don't possess. One bit of TMNT trivia that ties to New England comics, actually, is that years and years ago, back in the 80s, back in olden times, um, before Ninja Turtles had gotten the toy deal. So like the animation isn't happening yet. It's just a comic book from Northampton. Um, they had the toy deal on the horizon, like coming, and the money for that. But they actually, and this is true because they still have copies, and I know the person who bought them. So I won't name them but if you shop at their stores, you know who their primary buyer is. Years ago, NEC bought a whole like pallet's worth of backstock books that they had printed. Like there's always these stories of like they couldn't keep Ninja Turtles on the shelf or whatever, but they still needed to sell to retailers. And NEC at one point bought like a giant amount of back issues. So like that's why NEC in their like gold and silver age sales, they always have, like mint copies of TMNT, not issue one, but like three and two and the early stuff. I always try to have the characters with a little bit of grunge to them, like a little, like their stuff's a little beat up. I mean, they live in a sewer, so I was going through some of my old badges. I had some of my old Mid Ohio Con badges from the olden days of doing shows out there, and the old Pittsburgh Comic Con that wasn't even really in Pittsburgh, but they said it was. Um, in the comics, I like just the white eyes. I do. And like I said, I always picture it in that original duo shade paper. I actually have some, not duo shade, but I actually have some of that Deleter brand Zipatone that I bought that they use for manga. And I think I am going to use it for a TMNT piece. It was either that or doing like an American flag piece. Those are like the two books that I most associate with craft tone paper. It was south of Pittsburgh by like a half hour. But the badges all say Pittsburgh Comic Con on them. It's funny, Jeff McClellan, who I work on the tick with, uh, got a sketch from Daryl Banks at Pittsburgh one year, and I was actually sitting next to Daryl, and we had no idea. We didn't really meet at that point. Yeah, I'm at the book, the Chaikin book, American Flag. It's like one of the like seminal works of the '80s. If you don't know it, I would highly recommend grabbing the trades. It's a great read, and like if you think of some of the things that Frank Miller is given credit for, and Todd McFarlane, like the news anchors as being a major part of the storytelling, that was really. I do have Zipatone. Yeah, I bought it from jetpens.com. They carry it there. It's a Japanese brand called Deleter, and you have to buy like a special knife to use it, and a little thingy that sticks it down. I'm sure you could use just like a wooden spoon, like the original Zipatone, back in the day. But yeah, I've been meaning to do a piece with it, but I've been wanting to do a piece that is very specific, and I want it to be a good piece that I do it on because it's expensive. It's real expensive. Yeah, JetPens has it. Yeah, I buy most of my stuff from there now because like every time I even go to, Blick or whatever, they don't have what I'm looking for. And then they're like, oh, we can special order it. And then it ends up being even more expensive. Um, but yeah, that's where I get my most of my brush pens and the specific pencil leads that I use, the Uni pencil leads. Yeah, I would say it's been probably 2 or 3 conventions since I've been asked to draw the Ninja Turtles. I was actually at Plastic City, and Jim Lawson and Michael D were there. Um, they didn't remember me, but I would not expect them to. Yeah, they were there. They were just hanging out. There was a little show in Fitchburg at Fitchburg State University. Um, they had pages. They had some of the strips that they'd done. Um, I already had a page that I got from Jim Lawson and Eric Talbot um, a number of years ago in my collection. Nice fellows. No, why would he? We met at when I just meet people at conventions, I don't expect people to remember me. If we ever worked on a project together, I'd be like, hey, how come you don't remember me? But it's only those people that you actually had to be in the trenches with. Because I never worked for Mirage. I only did stuff for IDW. No, he was polite. He was nice. I hold nothing against it. I hold no malice. I forget folks' names all the time. So Yeah, very, very nice. Yeah. So got my ruler. I've only ever had brief conversations with Michael Dooney. I still think he probably has the most iconic TMNT cover of all time. The one that was used for the video game too. Such a great cover. Oh, nice. And I will not. I might go look around. Yeah, I don't think any of the guys I've met at all from the Mirage crew have ever been anything but super nice. There's a few I haven't met yet, but you know, Pete and Kevin, very nice. Jim, Mike, Eric. But yeah, there's a few I haven't met yet. Yes, one day I will. One day. I bet my buddy Pat Broderick could let me crash on his couch. Although he'd have to run it by Mrs. Pat. I'm not sure where in Florida he lives, so it might not work. I know it's a pretty big state. Right now what I'm doing is doing some shorthand texture where the light source is up and to the left. And as you can see, I leave an opening for a lack of texture. And it's just a way of creating this framing of where on this panel, there's this little bit where it's a little lighter. And then here it's going to be a little smaller and a little smaller and a little smaller as you get further away from the light source. So like that's just a little thing that I try to be conscious of. The guy that does it probably the most blatantly, and I don't mean that as a bad thing, but I just mean as like how he handles his textures is Walt Simonson. Yeah, back in the day, and there were even like, you know, because Mirage kept making books for a long time, you know, and they, I think even my buddy Ray Height did like a Tales of the TMNT years later. I've always been meaning to ask him about that because he's listed on the having done it, and it's just never come up in conversation. We're always busy talking about other stuff. The embassy has free breakfast, and the actors stay there. Well, if they let the actors stay there, they don't let a schmuck like me stay there. They definitely would have the no artist sign right, and they paste it on top of the old vintage no hippies sign. Maybe you can see like part of it sticking out on the side. One of the things about my inking process is it's not really inking. It's really just continuing to draw because I'm not tracing over anything. Some of these are just notes for me to know where the geometrics begin and end, but you'll see I definitely haven't made those drawing decisions yet. Okay, well, if they let you stay there, then maybe they'll let me stay there. But you have the local cred. Like he's one of us. Let him through. Yeah, and it's really just a matter of cost. And sometimes a show will help me out. I can pretty much make any show happen, with a reasonable amount of like success if I can get help on either the travel or the hotel. Like I'm not saying it has to be all free or whatever, but like some of the rates are just so expensive for these big shows. And I work with some shows and I know that the conventions get their own rate at these hotels. If they can at least just give me the show's rate for the stay. And also I always offer to do, to do programming to help out. I do. Uh, I've done several different panel discussions. Sometimes it's about characters, but my favorite one to do is one that I just call the Making Comics panel. And Douglas, that's one that I would pitch for you to be on if we're ever at a show together, because like I love just having somebody else there, and all we do is talk about how we make comics and take questions, and it's usually packed with people who are just want to know how to make comics and are making their own comics. And I didn't know John Beatty did a TMNT issue. Wow. Okay. It's always nice if a show, foots the bill for everything. But I know shows are different sizes. They have different budgets. They have all kinds of stuff going on. If we can at least just negotiate to where I just get the show's hotel rate, it usually is there. It is fun. It really is. When you have a couple of people just chatting, like how we make comics and the different things that we've done and tried, things that work, things that don't work. And it's always young people that are there that are really enthusiastic. Like it's a really, really fun time. Like if I had my pick, that would be the only panel I ever do. But I usually get asked to be on different panels. Hey Kevin, what's shaking, man? And I can tell you now, Kevin, I have my flight booked for Colorado Springs. I will be at that show. So I hope to see you and the missus out in that direction if you're in town. Or if not, I will miss you. Panels are fun. Like they can be. I was on one panel last year where there were only like a couple of people in the audience and it was not fun. But then like we had the worst time slot ever at the very end of the show at Rhode Island last year for the Making Comics panel. Like all the big time actors had gone home, and I just talked to Jeff McClellan and my buddy Joe St. Pierre, and I said, "Hey, would you be on this panel with me?" And we have a horrible time slot, but it's always a good time to talk comics. And they were both like, "Sure." And the room was 2/3 full, and it was a big room. And it wasn't like our friends and family just filling it out. My family stayed home for that one. All right, let me try to fix the static again. I'll be right back. Just trying the fix. Let me know if that's better. Better? Okay, cool. Sweet. Anytime it does that, just give me a holler. I can't hear it, and I can try my one fix. And what's crazy, and maybe one of you tech savvy people knows this. When I did the replay of it, it was only in Facebook that it was staticky. It was not in YouTube. It was not staticky on Twitch. On the last one, there was no static, just on Facebook. It was so weird. But if you are a tech savvy individual and you know how I can fix it with just the Facebook feed, I would appreciate it. And to answer your question, yes, you got me. Just like messing with you. It's very me. Yeah, I have no idea why it's just Facebook. It's the only one that it does the staticky. So I'm like, people on Facebook will tell me if it sounds bad, and I'll do the little fix, and hopefully that takes care of it. I started using TikTok, and that's been interesting. It does definitely feel like a site run by unsupervised youths. But there's some really good artists that I'd never seen before on there, though, so that's been cool. It's definitely a whole different group of people there. Have I seen the newest Stranger Things? I have, yes. Yes, I have seen Stranger Things, and it was very fun show. You know, I was sad to see some of the characters that were demised for those that have not seen it and would like to see it. But I would say overall it was very enjoyable. Do I ever draw any art from that show? The only time I've ever drawn any art from that show was actually when I was talking at that middle school that Ben Edlin went to. The kids, we did like a just name a character and I'll try to draw them. And they asked for Vecna, the bad guy. And I basically said, "Oh, the guy that looks like Swamp Thing," and nobody knew who Swamp Thing was. So I was like, "Perfect. I'll draw Swamp Thing, and you'll think it's that guy." And they were very impressed. Very impressed. I tell you, those middle school people are very big fans of what's his name, the hero guy there, Steve. Very big fans of that guy. Hey, they didn't know who Swamp Thing was, so it worked out. It worked out just fine. They were happy, I was happy. That's pretty much what it was. "What's Swamp Thing, Grandpa?" It was a movie by, Wes Craven back in the '70s, and then it was this TV show that was only around for 3 seasons, but that back then, the TV shows had, like, 60 episodes, so there's, like, 150 episodes of this one Swamp Thing TV show. And they didn't have an actor in the show, they had a stunt guy in a suit. What's a diorama? Yeah, yeah. I could have pulled a Grandpa Simpson, been like, "I got a real funny story about Swamp Thing." It's not so much funny as it is long. Oh, no worries, Kevin. I mean, it's probably fine. I feel free to reach out to Joe. I can't speak for him, but um, pretty sure I would be delighted to have dinner with you in Colorado. And I know Ace, yeah, you know he's a good dude. And I am super proud of Ace and Tim. I met them at a Colorado show years ago now, and they're like, "We're gonna do a comic. We're gonna do a comic. We're gonna do a comic." And like, just so everybody knows, like when someone tells you we're gonna do a comic, we're gonna do a comic at a convention, and they've never made a comic before, it's very rare that they finish their comic or do anything in comics. Well, they've continued to like grind it out and do shows, and last year they put out their first comic, and like I I was just so thrilled. That was like one of my favorite moments of the show last year was walking over to their booth and buying their book. Because they've been telling me like we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, and they did it, and it was just awesome. And look ahead, all the hallmarks of the first book you've ever done, like you don't know all the file formats, you don't know all the lettering stuff, and that's okay. That it was great to look at. Like I just was so thrilled for those guys, and like they started their journey of being like, well, it's okay until you get the copies back, and then you start ripping it to pieces. Like, oh, how did I miss that spelling mistake on page 4? Let's see how we're doing here. Arm's a little long, but on a sketch cover, we'll live with it. But yeah, those guys, I was super proud of them because I'm sure Doug has it. I'm sure any other artist that's been here, you get that person who comes up to your booth like, I've got this great idea for a comic book, and then you never hear from them again. But in this case, they did it. They freaking did it. They got another issue coming out, so like, I'm really happy for them. What can I say? I'm a bit of a softie when it comes to that stuff. Last year at Gem City, I had a great show. Like I made good money. I had a lot of fun. I saw a lot of friends. So what I did was, is on the last day, I went around and anybody who had a new issue one, especially anybody that looked like they were just starting, as long as it wasn't like a $15 book or whatever, like most of them were like $3 to $5. I bought it and checked it out. And I wanted to see what, young creators thought was cool and what they were making and what was coming out. I think I want to try to be better at least knowing what the younger voices are trying to say. And I think that's important for trying to stay relevant. Because I was really leaning into like the stuff from when I was a kid, and I don't, you know, I'm always going to make that stuff for me, like because I love that stuff. The retro coloring and everything. Um, but as far as like getting commercial jobs, I've got to be as versed as I can be in what's going on. I'll probably be working on this on the flight tomorrow. I'll be interested to see if you never know what's going to happen when you start drawing on a flight. What your neighbor's going to say or how people will react to it. I should do them. I am not very funny, I don't think. I would go listen. I would go listen to that. I'm pretty sure if I tried to tell jokes, I would just tell like silly stories of things that have happened to me in my career. Yeah, I would go see it. I would do that. Just trying to, because we all know people that like, they just do what they do, and then they blame, people for not knowing. I want to welcome people into what I know, and I want to I want to learn what they have to know. So at least that's, I think, a healthier way to go about it, or at least try to. I think my turtles have gotten bulkier over the years. They used to be lanky. You look at that, it's like tall and lanky. Now he's all meaty. I'll be honest, I haven't been to any indoor shows with crowds for anything for a very long time. So like I haven't been to a comedy show or a concert, an indoor concert. I generally go to like movies during the week, at like lunchtime or just in the evening during the week when I know it's not going to be busy. or I'll catch like the Saturday morning showing or Sunday morning showing. Yeah, I remember the stuff that like the when I was, first coming up, it was all pretty straightforward superhero stuff. There was the occasional like slice of life comics, and there was always that an influx of that. Like autobio comics, there was always a little bit of that, because of the especially when I was young, the Eisner graphic novel influence was just you couldn't escape it. Where would we be? I don't know. Maybe. And that's actually a fun thought exercise that, I have a couple of friends that we do it when we're sitting in Artist Alley when things slow down a bit. Like, what if, Spider-Man came out today and it was independent and it was just sitting in, at somebody's table and nobody ever knew about it. So, like, you know, people are like, oh, no, that would never happen. Basing their ideas around, like, you couldn't make something like Spider-Man without a corporate machine. Well, you know. I tend to think it, if Steve, I tend to think if some of the creators like Ditko and, Richard Corbin and some of these folks that worked for indies in their day were around today, I think they absolutely would have gone the crowdfunding route and done, all the things that maintain their creative control. But, you know, that's just what I think, because I just think that, it's such a it was such a rare thing to have any creative control over anything back then. Yeah, I mean, that's a great one to, one of the things, if you read like all these old memoirs and things that have come out about Marvel back in the day, and I'm trying to remember which one it was, but there was one that had a extensive interview with Gil Kane in it, and it might have been a Comics Journal interview, but he flat out said that, he and other artists were invited to those like college talks back in the day, and they just didn't go. They didn't want to go. They didn't want to go talk at the colleges. They didn't want to talk to young people. They just wanted to draw, collect their check, and draw the next thing. I'm actually gonna, because this is like I always think of Donnie's post staff as being like worn out wood. What I like to do is I like to rule it and then freehand it after the ruling, just to make sure that I get the, because I have a beveled ruler here, I can keep the thickness the same. I found that fascinating. I found it interesting that like all like Kane and Kirby and Gene Colan, like they were all invited to those talks. Like anybody like John Romita, and Romita did some, because I've seen some of the drawings he did at some of those talks. Because he would label them. He'd label, where and when he did them. Yeah, I'm super jealous of that. Any chance I got to speak to the creators of the old stuff, I got made fun of by the local comic shop crew, the Wednesday Warriors, when I would, we had one of the guys that I got to talk to quite a bit was Marty Nodell, the creator of Green Lantern. He would do Mid Ohio Con every year. First time I met him, I was kind of a chunky kid, and he was trying to pawn off his French fries on me. Or Dick Ayers was at those shows quite a bit. I know he got a little bit of recognition towards the end of his life, but he just did so many comics, so many westerns, romance, mystery stuff. I got to meet Gene once, Gene Colan. I remember flipping through his stack of pages, and he had stuff from like Marvel Comics Presents, like the Nightcrawler stuff that he did. I know Paul Norris used to do San Diego all the time, but it was before my day. I always have to talk to Ramona whenever she's at a show too. Ramona Fraden. But that's how I got to meet a lot of people. But yeah, I'll be I want to hear more about that in Colorado. They got a pretty decent artist list this year, for Colorado. I give them credit. They added from last year. I did. I was a chunky kid, and when somebody offers you French fries, you eat the French fries. Yeah, I had previously to that encounter met Daryl Banks, and there was one point because I was raised to always be like polite and cordial, but not to accept food or whatever, and from somebody you don't know. And Daryl said, "No, no, they're good people," and Martin O'Dell was there with I think it was his son, and yeah, we chatted the rest of the show. Of course, you take the French fries. The fat kid takes the French fries, and that was me that I'm referring to. You might have to black that out to get a better break between the characters. That's one thing you're going to see a big shift. This one I'm planning on having at the Gym City show this weekend. So if it sells that weekend, great. If not, I can set it aside or put it on my website. I didn't get a big stack of pre-show commissions, so I'm trying to draw some stuff that I think will move at the show and help me pay for dinner and such. I have one more TMNT universe cover, which I would like to do in full color. Oh, thank you, Kevin. If it doesn't sell in Ohio, it's yours. I'll try not to ruin it as I'm working on finishing it. No doubt, very nice guy, very nice. He loved he liked talking about creating the Pillsbury Doughboy as much as he enjoyed talking about creating Green Lantern. And he always liked to point out that, that the Pillsbury Doughboy was made of flour. Flour comes from plants, plants wood, that the Pillsbury Doughboy could defeat Green Lantern in a fight. And that bothered so many nerds, and I think he enjoyed it. Green Lantern can't lose to the Pillsbury Doughboy. And I heard him tell the story like multiple times. If they buy it, I'll draw the other one for you. I gotta say though, the one thing that is really exceptional at Gem City overall, I enjoy a great deal because of the just being a small show with just artists and comics. But they do a terrific drink and draw at the local brewery, and the money that's raised goes to the local art public art school classes, which I think is awesome. And I always do a piece every year for it. And the beer's good. I actually have a little sketch by Marty. Let's see if I can find it real quick. See if it's in this binder. See? I don't know. They keep asking me, and all I ask for is just to let me know in advance. Here it is. I'll show you my. There's some sketches I got, and this is the one that Marty did for me, Martin O'Dell. There's a Paul Ryan sketch card. He did this for me at a show called Super Mega Fest, and his wife Linda was there, and they looked over at me and they're like, "You look hungry," and they came over and they brought me some like granola bars and bottled water, and they were very nice. Hannibal King, Tom Mandrake. This was from Mid Ohio Con a long time ago, and the Hembeck is from I think New York, but that's my Martin O'Dell sketch. Hey, they're inexpensive ways to collect artwork. If somebody doesn't have like prelims or inexpensive pages, I'm not opposed to a sketch card. That's all the ones that I have though. I don't have any other ones. I tried selling sketch cards at one point, and that didn't yield very much. I spent hours on them too. I would do like little mini watercolor paintings. That was from the French fry encounter, actually. That one, so it's relevant to the story. It's from the first time I met him. He was like, "Oh, I'm selling little drawings," and he had them on. They're just on little index cards like you buy at the drugstore. And he'd sit there with his little markers and color them in. I did make the mistake of not having it personalized. I usually ask for that specifically now. Something like to Ian, hope you enjoyed the fries. Something like that would have been appropriate. Hey, thanks so much, Kevin. And best to Sharon, and look forward to seeing you next month. Should be fun. Have a good night. We're gonna be signing off soon anyway, because I got to finish packing. I'm gonna definitely be noodling on this on the flight, and I'll add like those little dots that I like to add to the turtle's skin texture. Night, Kevin. Thanks so much. I think I'll call it a night as well. We inked a couple of turtles. I'll finish the other two, and I'll post the results. And um, yeah, Gem City's this weekend, and after that, the next show's not till August. So it'll be a little bit of time for me to get some work done, and hopefully get that Undersea Hero book wrapped up, and get the next Helena book a little closer. So good night, everyone, and I will hope to see you next Wednesday. So have a good night.